So after witnessing the big rally in the US stocks in the last few days since the election, I looked at the UK markets and I looked at the UK market since summertime, and they've performed so poorly. So many stocks have not rallied. In fact, a lot of them have gone down since the summertime. And I was looking at some of the decisions that have been made in the UK and what is affecting UK stocks. And I just kind of looked at it and went, what are we doing here? Like, there just seems to be so many idiots making decisions on what that affects for the UK economy, UK stocks, that I thought these are just terrible decisions that are absolutely killing us at the moment. And I was a bit frustrated because I was looking at some of my UK stocks and I was thinking, I feel like giving up on them. Yeah, I felt like giving up on them and going, why invest into the UK stocks and the UK economy right now when there's just so many issues going on? In fact, it's not issues, there's people making bad decisions for the future of the UK economy and UK stocks. And then you look at the US and you look at how the US is flying, it's been flying all year. And you're kind of thinking, why am I investing here when you're looking at the US market going, you might as well all be there. And today's just a bit of a rant video, to be honest with you. I'm going to rant because I'm going to say, what is all the big issues currently going on with the UK economy and UK market and the poor decisions that are being made out there. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let's get started. So today, the Bank of England decided to cut interest rates, which I think is very much needed. But I was very surprised around the commentary. I was surprised around the commentary to be hearing that it could take longer for potential more interest rates to come. And there could potentially be a spike of inflation, which we shouldn't be having it at the moment. We shouldn't have another spike of inflation. And obviously around uncertainty around the world. And I thought there's not really that much uncertainty around the world. The only uncertainty is being caused in our own country. And I was looking at the interest rates, and I personally think we should have had a 50 basis points cut today on the interest rates. And the fact that we only just got a 25 basis points cut just blew my mind. I don't know why we are being so slow to cut interest rates. And I don't understand the hesitation to cut interest rates. The amazing thing about cutting interest rates, guys, is that it's not something that you just cut and then if you go, oh, you know what, we made a bad decision, or, oh, you know what, maybe we need to go back up again. It's not something that, there's nothing there stopping you. This is the thing that's been frustrating me around these interest rates, is that you are able to change interest rates. It's not something that you only can do once and then you can't touch it again for another 2 years. You're literally there to decide on it nearly every single month what interest rate should be. So if you go maybe one interest rate too far, you can always go back up on the interest rate. There's no big issue around that. I don't understand the hesitation to do changes to the interest rate, especially when we were so slow to put interest rates up. When inflation was 20% in the UK, we still weren't putting interest rates up. But now that inflation's down at 1.7, we're in a position where everyone's going, oh, you know what, I don't know if we should cut interest rates. And it's like, well, hold on. When it was 20%, when you didn't even start putting it up, and now it's at 1.7%, we're hesitant to bring it down. Like right now, I was looking at inflation. Right now, inflation in the UK, we're at 1.7%. But yet we've got our interest rate still right now at 4.75%. We've still got interest rates nearly 3 times inflation. That is insanity. You cannot put your interest rates at 3 times inflation, especially when you've had so many consumers in the UK. We're not blessed like the US market. We don't have, when we get our mortgages, unlike in the US, you buy your mortgage, your interest rate stays at whatever your interest rate is when you buy that property. That's one of the big things that was brought in when the Great Recession happened in the US, is that you know your interest rate, you're locked in for the years that you have your mortgage. In the UK, we don't unfortunately have that. You are open to volatility in your interest rates. So for people that do buy houses and bought houses maybe in between 2010 to 2022, when interest rates finally started going up on 20% inflation, we don't have that protective blanket. So we've had like 30-40% of homes in the UK that have mortgages go from this 2% mortgage up to 5% mortgages, and households have had to pay thousands of pounds every month extra in the mortgage costs. And now for us, all of a sudden, we've been so slow to bring it down and helping those kind of people out, or other people that have any interest in sensitive products. Like the Bank of England is happy to let people suffer. And that's during a time frame where people have had to deal with big rises in their average day cost as well, outside of petrol, food, insurance premiums. It's like the Bank of England wants the UK economy to suffer. It just does not make sense, and suffer is what's happening on, because you look at the GDP growth at the moment and it is stalling a little bit. And I don't see why, we're so reluctant to bring out our interest rates at the moment. Now, look at someone like Sainsbury's. I mean, Sainsbury's came out today and said that they potentially will have to increase prices, and then that will cause inflation again because of things that the government have brought out, like the NI hike. Obviously, they've aggressively, once again, increased the minimum wage for businesses as well, corporation tax as well. We've had a minimum wage that's gone up 3 times whatever it was inflation again. So there is the risk now that potentially we are going to see maybe a spike in inflation because of the costs that are being put on on companies, and that's going to hurt them as well. But that's going to happen. You look at someone like Sainsbury's, for example. This is a company that historically runs around about 1%, even less than 1% on a profit margin point of view. There's some point where they can't absorb these costs that the government have put on them since the budget. So these elements where they have to increase the prices, because otherwise they're going to be loss making. You can't be loss making, so they are going to have to pass it on to the consumer. But what we have here is just, once again, people making bad decisions in the UK economy. I'm looking at the UK thinking, these interest rates really should have been coming down since the start of the year, and yet we haven't seen it. And now all of a sudden they're saying, oh, well, inflation might spike because of the budget, is a late excuse why they can't cut it. So we've already had people being so bad at managing the interest rates. Now we have the issue where potentially that we might get a spike of inflation, and now they're blaming it on that. But then why are we getting a spike of inflation? Because once again, we just have people that are in power bringing costs that businesses can't absorb in. We have very extreme hikes on the national insurance that's going to affect businesses. We have big extreme on corporation tax, big extreme on what they have to pay minimum wage. Once again, that was already after a year. There was a big hike the previous year, and then once again, we hiked up 3 times the inflation rate on minimum wage. And now we're making businesses suffer. We have people that are making the average person suffer with high interest rates. We have a government that's making businesses suffer with higher corporation tax. And by the way, this is not just a dig at the current government at the moment. This is many years, by the way. A higher corporation tax, which was brought in by the last government. We have higher NI hikes, which was brought in by the current government, and extreme minimum wage increases, which were brought in by the last government, and then this one. I mean, I'm all for lower workers getting paid more money, but you've got to have it into reality. You've got to have into reality that there's only so much you can keep taking from either the average person or the average company, and they're going to start suffering. And it just seems like we are causing all these issues in the UK. And then I look at something like the US, for example, and US is gifted because their economy growth is so much better than ours. The US economy is a lot better than the UK economy, so they're not desperate to keep that stimulus coming. They're not as desperate to get the stimulus. They're not as desperate for interest rates. They're not as desperate for interest rates because a lot of mortgages are locked in. They can handle a higher interest rate environment a lot better than what we can in the UK. We're not gifted in that point of view. But then I'm looking at the United States that's got 2.4% inflation. That's higher than our current 1.7% inflation by 40%. Their inflation's 40% higher than ours. But yet you're looking at the Federal Reserve in the US, who are not as desperate to cut the interest rates than us, but yet the US are ahead of cutting interest rates now. And we have it where the US have just cut their interest rates right now, and they've cut it down to 4.5%. And we're currently at 4.75%. The US currently have a lower inflation interest rate than us. When we've got the weak economy, we have more people suffering because of the weaker economy and struggling to pay the bills because of the higher interest rates, because we're more higher interest rate sensitive. We've got an economy that's slower than the US, but yet they are cutting more than what we are. Now, I think the US should be probably a bit lower than where they are right now, to be fair, but I can see why. They're still doing all right in the US. In the UK, why are we not taking advantage of that our inflation is in a better place, but then we're not returning it to the consumer? And yet then all we do is continue to hit the consumer. Then all we do is continue to hit the UK businesses. And that's why the UK performance has been so poor. When we look at the FTSE 250 performance since May time, why since May have we not done anything? We were doing all right previously, but why have we not done anything since May 2024? Because we just had stupid decision made by stupid decision once again by people at the top. And like I said, it's not just the last 6 months, really, but it's been a build-up of bad decisions, and then we are starting to see the effects of that. There's only so long before you keep making stupid decisions before it does start affecting you. And that's what's happened. We've got to the point of view where we've had stupid decisions where we're in a good place, inflation, but yet we haven't taken advantage of it. All we've done is continue to hit the UK households with higher interest rates than what they need to be. You know, realistically, right now, the interest rates in the UK should be around 4%, but yet they're not. And if we were down at 4%, wouldn't we see businesses starting to rally up a little bit? Wouldn't we see the optimism around lower interest rates? Wouldn't we see house builders doing very well? Wouldn't we see people starting to take out them higher loans potentially because of that and stimulating the economy? And yet we've gone that long at these rates, and now we're having stupid things being said like, we can't do it anymore because there's uncertainty around the world. We can't do it now because we might have higher inflation. Let's deal with what we have right now. And what we have right now is an economy that should be growing a little bit faster because we should have the stimulus of lower interest rates right now. Why do we have people at the top that are causing potential inflation spikes? Why do we have people that are putting big pressure on companies where they're having to pay millions of extra pounds on not just one thing? You know, we're not talking about something where it's just one pressure. We're talking about corporation tax issues. We're talking about big hikes up in costs that they have to pay the workers. Big costs where they have to also pay the increase in minimum wage. It's just stupid. You know, it's just so greedy, because what you have here is that you have like the government example, just desperate to make money and money off businesses, but you're already taking more profit because you've raised the corporation tax. You're taking more profit because you've hiked up the NI and what they have to contribute on an NI point of view, on a percentage point of view. But then you've also been greedy and you've increased or decreased the threshold that you pay NI. So there's a double whammy there. But then also you pay the point of view that you've given the big increase of the minimum wages. And not just small increases as well, you know, 6.7%, you know, 3 times inflation at the moment. And the thing is, well, with these big increases on minimum wage is that you can make it out to say, oh, well, we want to benefit the lower worker. But what's also the other reason with that sort of increase? Well, if a lot of these private companies are having to pay not just more NI to the government, so they make more tax, but if they're having to pay them even more money, what does that mean? Well, the government are going to take more money from that. They're going to, because their businesses are paying more, they potentially can make more from tax from their income. They're going to also have more NI from their income. And it's easy for the government to go, yeah, you guys, Sainsbury's, you have to pay it. But the government takes no responsibility. The government aren't affected by this. This is a cheap way for the government to put pressure on businesses, and they just go, it's not our issue. It's a lot different from where, okay, you go give teachers a pay rise, you go give doctors a pay rise, you give them a pay rise, the government are number crunching, going, have we got the money from this? For them, it's just, yep, you pay it, it's not our issue. And it's just suicidal for the government to not assess the impact that this is going to have on UK businesses. And I just think, everyone that's in a place of power in the UK at the moment, whether it be the Bank of England, the current government, the previous government, they all just keep making bad decisions that are impacting me and you, the average person, and also businesses. We just seem in a place where you can see why no one's really interested, because we just look at the impact and bad decision after bad decision. And you're kind of looking at it now, and you look at the US, and you look at the US flying, and you look and think, what's the point? And that's just the way I felt over the last kind of few days. And it's maybe more optimistic for the US, but I look at the UK and I just think, what is the point here? It's just a momentum and a confidence killer where you're just staring after bad news after bad news. And you can see why the stocks aren't rallying in the UK. What motivation is there to kind of invest in here when you're hit with all these issues and these people in power that are making these stupid rules? I don't know. And it's not really a constructive video today, guys. I apologise for that, but I just wanted to rant because it's been a frustrating time as a UK investor and just living in the UK and just seeing the decisions that are being made, and it's just catastrophic for us at the moment, and it's a right confidence killer in it. So maybe things get better, but I don't know anyway. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. See you in a bit.